This is My Queer Muslim Life. This is a podcast for queer Muslim stories across Sydney, Australia. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal land, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, as well as to emerging leaders. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Hi, welcome to another podcast session with Sydney Queer Muslims. My name is Nafia, I'm the social worker for this organisation, and the topic of discussion today is navigating through life, love and relationships as queer Muslims. Quite a personal subject that explores one's family dynamics and the challenges that come with being queer in a Muslim household. Today we have Nashwa, whose pronouns are they, she, and their partner Sapora, whose pronouns are also they, she. Nashwa will be talking about their own life experiences of being a queer Muslim and how that impacted the many relationships in their life, including the relationship with Sapora. Thank you for joining us today. Nashwa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Najwa. I'm a 32-year-old queer Muslim in Sydney.
Hi, I'm Sapora. I'm a 37-year-old queer person and recovering Adventist.
Nice. Thank you so much for making the time to be in this podcast. So Nashwa, you have quite a journey of being a queer Muslim and I guess the whole process of coming out and how that affected your family life and as an adult now. So let's start at the beginning, at the very beginning of your story. How was it like growing up as a queer Muslim in your childhood?
I would say growing up, I wasn't aware of my sexuality, which was a great thing. I always knew, though, that the clothes that I was wearing weren't my clothes. So I distinctly remember looking down and just not liking what my mum would put me in. I was the class clown, I was the tomboy. So it was very easy to hide behind the big personality. And not being aware of my gender variance was a blessing to me. I had a great family, the best childhood, and so grateful for it. We had holidays often. Every Saturday were big family gatherings. You'd see about 50 people in a house.
Wow.
30 cousins. So I had quite an enriched childhood, which, I'm grateful for. But yeah, didn't realise I was queer, but I knew that I wasn't in the right clothes.
Right, wow. So you come from a pretty big family.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with the different members in your family and your extended family? Were they aware of you being queer, or how did they kind of treat you, if they got any hints of it?
Looking back, I realised there were times where the adults would have picked it up, but they didn't name it.
Yeah.
They let me be myself, and I think indications would be if we're watching movies that alluded to it, we were kind of censored or not spoken about.
Yeah.
But I was sporty and I was into football, and I was so the tomboy title really helped me get through. And I think as adults who feared that would be the case, they didn't make too much of a fuss about it. But I could always hide behind my humour and being a clown, and I think I was able to be under the radar with my presence with the family. I was also someone that helped often, so my good deeds really helped me with being loved, and being queer or gender variant wasn't really a topic of discussion at the time.
So did your mum have a feeling that you were queer during your childhood?
Funny story. So after I had come out and we'd gone through our stages, I remember we were in Bankstown Square going down the escalators, and she actually told me that she had a feeling since I was 3. And in the middle of the shopping centre, I break down crying as a 28-year-old adult.
Yeah.
Because the whole time I thought I was keeping something from her, and I had to come out to her. And she saw signs of it from when I was 3. So she said that she was driving and she looked in the rearview mirror, and I was in the back seat with my cousin, who at the time was 5, and I was really admiring my cousin's hair. And not that I wanted it, is I was really intensely admiring her hair, and the way I obsessed over it gave her, and she had an inkling, but it kind of confirmed. And then me being a tomboy and not liking my clothes from as early as I can remember,
it just added to that gut feeling.
It did add to it, and she said she had always known, but she didn't want to give it space to grow or be expressed. So she also let me hide behind the tomboy and the sportiness, without giving me any more insight onto what she was going through, or what she sensed at the time.
Did you feel relieved in a way that she already had an idea of it from so long ago?
It's interesting because I had a mixture of feeling validated, but also I was kind of angry that I felt like I had a secret
for so long.
Yeah, that's right. But I also felt validated in my sexuality because it's like a pendulum. Sometimes there's self-doubt around where what Islam says about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a mixture of relief and frustration. But I just started crying, and it's a mother always knows.
Yeah. Now that day must have changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
So what were the instant changes that happened after that? How was your relationship with your mother after that?
So that was following a few years after not having contact with my mum. She's always been quite a honest, forward person, and I do have that space to have very deep conversations with her. Where we're at now is she knows that I was created this way.
Yeah.
She accepts that I was created this way, but we're not to talk about it. So it's come to the point where we will discuss everything else but that.
Right.
And in her own words, she can love all other parts of me. But I feel like she's going through her own journey with it.
Yeah.
But I can call her and talk about anything. I think I'm quite lucky in that sense where she doesn't like to sweep things under the rug.
Yeah, that's definitely.
So, having a mum like that gives me that permission. There are boundaries of what we can talk about, but for the most part, there was a lot of healing after that conversation that came, after not having them in my life for a few years.
Yeah, wow. No, that definitely sounds like a stepping stone to a new path. On the topic of childhood, you went to a Muslim school, right? Two Muslim primary schools?
Yeah. So all my schooling years were in a private Muslim school, except for one, year 7. I went to a public school, and she quite quickly dragged me back into the private Islamic school system. So I grew up doing Quran and Islamic studies all my life.
So how was that like to navigate your queerness while going to an Islamic school, and how did that impact your own belief in Islam?
The good thing is I am so thankful that I didn't know at school, because I think that would have complicated things for me. I had a lot of behavioural issues. I was also the tomboy amongst the girls. I would defend them if they were arguing with the boys. I was that kind of that boy for them, but I was that comfort. I had intense close friendships, and like if they didn't work out, I would feel brokenhearted. So looking back, I realized now that I had very close queer friendships.
Right.
To say that it would have affected my time at school, I think there were so many other things happening where I didn't realize.
Yeah.
But I was always the boy in plays because we were segregated until year 10. So I see. I've always kind of played that masculine role, even among my female, peers in class.
Yeah. So it kind of just like naturally came to you.
Yeah. And so thankful for the terminology tomboy. It was, I loved it. I love that blanket term.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So with the actual process of coming out, who did you come out to when you first did, and how was that process like? It must have definitely been scary in the moment.
Yeah.
With a lot of events following. So how did that whole experience go?
I didn't come out by choice, if one is to say. My mum knew the whole time. And my mum actually asked me countless times when I was probably about 18 or so.
Right.
At 19, she came to me and said, if this is the case, she gave me an ultimatum. Mm-hmm. If this is the case, you're not to live under this roof and you'll have no contact with your family or extended family, because she knew how much I loved them. Yeah. So at the time, she was doing what, parents scare us into doing things.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to say it's the right way, but it's the way that she knew at the time. Mm-hmm. So I remember her coming to my bedroom at night and she was like, I'm having dreams, I'm having nightmares. If you are, it's leading to this feeling that you might be. If you are, you're not to live here, so you'd have to leave the house. So I remember going to bed crying that night because I was watching the L Word in secret. Right. I was exploring things on the internet and, blogging secretly about it. Yeah. Under a completely different name. I was trying to reach out to queer Muslims through any platform that I could that didn't have my real name. Yeah. But it was kind of scary, and it, kind of shocked me into just go back really deep into my deen, distracting myself, still living kind of a double life. But I really loved my family and I wanted to hold on to them. So, she won in that ultimatum. About 4 years later, when I was 23, I was actually in an online long distance relationship. And as we all are when we first get into a relationship, I was on my phone a lot.
Of course.
And I lived under my mum's roof, and we spent a lot of time together, so she could see that I was distracted. Yeah. So we were on a cruise, and we were getting ready to go swimming, and she again had a nagging feeling, and just asked me what is her name.
Right. So she didn't even ask whether.
No, there were no questions before.
What is her name?
And that was at 23. So I was stunned, and it's no one that she knew, and I said someone online. So the rest of the cruise went by, and we're in this weird kind of state because you're on holiday, you're with 10 other people, you want to enjoy yourself. Yeah. I was terrified.
Absolutely.
Because when we get home, what does that mean? What does that look like for me? When we got home, I snuck my passport from my mum's handbag, and I knew that something was going to change real quick. And she presented me with the ultimatum again, and this time I took her up on her offer and actually packed my bags to move out. So through her asking, I had to come out. I was planning to wait until my sister, who's younger than me by 5 years, she would get married and then be distracted with that, and then I would move out so I wouldn't leave her behind. But it was her questioning was kind of a catalyst for that process, and I just had to accept that it's out there, and I had to stick by who I was because I wasn't going to deny it any longer.
That must have been terrifying to come out when you weren't ready and just so suddenly, and then having to go through the events unprepared. Did you ever speak to someone in case that situation ever came up? Yeah,
so I was seeing a psychologist for my depression and anxiety. Yep. So so at the time I was seeing a psychologist for my depression and anxiety. And I had disclosed my sexuality to them, and they were basically trying to get me to an exit plan where I'm financially stable, to be prepared. So it was sprung on me earlier than expected. But I did have that openness with my psychologist at the time, and I'm quite grateful that I was seeing them. Other than that, it was just my online relationship. Which I think I put a lot on my partner at the time, because I was trying to fill a void of a whole family in one person. But I moved out from my mum's to my dad's house, which was about 10 minutes away, so my parents are not together. I had a rocky relationship with my dad, but at the time I kind of needed to just need somewhere to stay, so it was with him.
It's good that you did have your psychologist to give you ideas on what could have happened and your other options on what to do if you were faced with those situations. So it's good that you had like some form of preparation, even though it came so suddenly. But yeah, that whole situation must have been absolutely chaotic.
It was sprung on me, but I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's always guided me. Like, yes, I'm queer, but I'm also very in touch with my spiritual Islam. And I know that he would not have wanted it any other way. And so it unfolded the way that it was destined. And I'm very at peace with that. Because who's to say that I could have gone on another 10 years having a secret life, and that would have also been so suffocating.
Exactly, yeah.
So to say that, I was waiting for my sister to get married, was I just waiting, kind of making up a checkpoint? And,
right.
And who knows if I would have followed through. Because I do love my family so much, and I think by nature I'm quite self-sacrificial, so who knows if I would have had to live with that burden for longer than I planned. So it was difficult, it was sprung on me, but I'm very accepting about the way it has played out.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a peaceful way to think of things. So while you were with your mum and the rest of your family, did they ever try to encourage you to get married, or?
Actually, between the two ultimatums, so between the age of 19 and 23, I think I had 4 or 5 people come over. So in Lebanese culture, they come over for a visit, and but that visit is you being in your best outfit, you serving tea to a stranger in your lounge room, and that you could possibly end up getting married to, and it just never quite worked out. There was always conveniently something about them that I didn't like or didn't agree with, or look, I jumped through the hoops of culture. I tried it, and I was at one point prepared to maybe get married and disclose it to my future husband. Like, I had even thought about marrying someone, like a marriage of convenience. I just couldn't bring myself to it, because it was still more important to be authentic than to put on a play for my family. I love them so much that I need them to know the truth rather than appease them with something that was false. But definitely went through the whole serving tea to a stranger, weird visit. The parents talk about politics, and you awkwardly,
that all sounds so uncomfortable,
look at each other. It was so odd. Would not recommend, maybe. But hey, I gave it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, now we have your lovely partner Sephora with us. So how did you guys meet, and how was it like being in a relationship with Sephora, and I guess like juggling your family relationships, and were you still living with your dad at that time?
No, I lived with my dad for about 1.5 years. Then I moved out into a share house. Then into a granny flat.
Right.
And then when I regained contact with my family, my mum helped me buy an apartment. So I had my own apartment at the time. I was out. My family was relatively okay with it. So when I met Sephora, I was at the other kind of end of the rainbow. Had my own place and actively was on dating apps.
Right.
And that's how we met on the dating app, her, because I wasn't like in the queer scene physically. I was still very online with my queerness. And thank goodness for dating apps. So yeah, that's how I met Sephora.
Sephora, would you like to give kind of like your perspective on how the relationship was like, especially because you're not Muslim yourself, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
In my intro, I'm a recovering Adventist. So I come from very devout Adventist parents. My dad was a pastor. We had a very strict, almost militant kind of upbringing.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think that Naj and I discuss at length because there are so many differences between us that kind of bring us together. And I think one of the biggest ones is that Naj will talk about their family, and when I guess when I hear the way that Naj speaks about their family, it's something that I've always wanted.
Right.
And my parents were so strict compared to Naj's upbringing and family. It's kind of crazy that we're so alike but so different, and having had such a different upbringing. But it was it's something that I've always loved about Naj, even though I have my own internal battles with religion. And I think being brought up under a minister's house where we had to look right and play the part as extensions of my father and his wife. Sorry, our mum. I'm sorry. It's just the way that we say it in Psalm 1. Sorry, so it's like
no, that's okay.
The wife of the pastor. It helps me understand a lot of what Naj has gone through.
Yeah.
But also, I also don't understand because I don't understand what it's like to have the kind of family that Naj has and has had. And I think it's so bittersweet. In sharing a life with Naji, seeing hearing about everything that they had, and then how, I don't know, in a matter of like 24 hours you lost like 40 or 50 people that were so close to you because of who you are, but it hasn't changed who you are. So it's something that I think I have internal battles with my understanding and my experience of religion, which is very different to Naji's, but I think there's still a lot of beauty in it. But bittersweet, I think is probably the best way to describe it.
What was your experience of that? Kind of, I guess, balancing the internal battle of religion and sexuality in your daily life?
It's I'd be lying if I said today I was completely resolved with. It's kind of like oil and water, so they both exist within me. And these two parts make up part of who I am. I have so many other things about me, but I just have to accept that I am a combination of the two. I look to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. I try and look to his love, because we grew up, religion was something that you scared your kids with. If you don't do this, you're going to go to the hellfire. Well, like, I would have much rather, if you do this, you'll see these beautiful, fruits in heaven. So for me, I don't feel like I'm at a stage where I'm knowledged enough to say it's right or it's wrong or whatever it is. But I am accepting that both these parts make up who I am. When I first did come out and lost so many people, in a matter of a weekend, I did turn my back on Islam for a while because I associated the deen with family, with culture, but there was always a nagging feeling of Allah's presence, and I couldn't ignore that as much as I couldn't ignore my sexuality all those years. So, my mum says that in a beautiful way now. That she said, that's between you and God.
Yeah.
That's your thing with him, and there's other parts of you that, you know, are so beautiful. And for her, she's trying to understand it. And for myself, I've internalized that is actually between me and God.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to that discussion when my time comes. But there are so many other parts of Islam that I can uphold and have the ability to, you know, like my salah is in and out of the picture, but I'm still strongly connected to it. And there are so many parts of Islam that I love and that easily my brain is able to digest, and it's so right for me in so many ways. When it comes to discussing homosexuality in Islam, I won't deny it. I kind of avoid it because that's where it gets messy, and I just can't digest, you know, the two. It's really odd, but if I can do all these other parts of the deen at an okay level, then I've done the best I can with my capabilities. Maybe my brain just can't really handle, you know, discussing if it's right or if it's wrong. And so, I try and be a good person and accept I'm made up of maybe conflicting, you know, it's a conflicting identity.
Absolutely,
because people do speak a lot about reconciling the two. I don't necessarily feel like there needs to be a reconciliation. For me, my own personal journey is the acceptance of two opposing ideas. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. And that's what gets me through the day. You know, it might be different for other queer Muslims. Yeah. But that makes sense to me. And yeah, like some days you do question, you know, if a calamity befalls me, it's just like, am I getting punished? And then I'm like, wait, no, I need to have more positive reinforcement.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, it's not that quick. You know, the day before you miss the prayer, the next day you get a flat tire. Like, not everything has to mean something.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to exercise, you know, self-compassion.
I think that's a really good way to think of things, especially from the way that our parents raised us in such a, I guess, like fearful way to look at Islam. Like using fear as a means of control. Did you ever feel like your sexuality ever died down because of the conflict between your sexuality and religion?
You know, looking back, so before it's so funny because I didn't realize I was queer. But looking back, when I was about 17 to 19, I dove deep into kind of religion. Yeah. I studied Sharia beyond school, so I chose to go to a course. And I was very into my religion. I didn't even wear pants. That's how strict I was on myself. I wore the abaya, I wore the scarf. I tried to do, you know, all the things that you're supposed to do. I kind of knew more about my gender identity, but because I wanted to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I tried to keep myself busy with the religion. Yeah. And so to say it died down, maybe, you know, I focused more on religion so I wouldn't hear those parts. Yeah. But it was always there. And it's okay to accept that voice was always there. Yeah. But even now, it's you know, again, it's a pendulum. You know, some days my faith is stronger. Yeah. You know, and other days I'm in doubt. But both of those identities are equally important and present to me.
How is it like navigating your relationship with Sephora while also maintaining a relationship with both your parents?
So my parents are divorced, but they're remarried. So I've got two sets of parents. My mum and my stepdad have not met Sephora. Okay. So my relationship with my mum and my family is, you know, we speak about everything else but that life. And that's just, I'm just paraphrasing my mum, that life. Right, wow. We don't give it a name yet, but it's okay. It's okay. But I am grateful that my dad and his wife have a beautiful relationship with Sephora. Wow, so unlike maybe some other queer Muslims, I had a second chance of, you know, maybe I had a 50-50 chance of, you know, acceptance. my stepmom is Orthodox.
Yeah.
So it did take her a bit of time to come around. But, I mean, we were less than 2 weeks ago. We were having laughs and chats, and we were at my dad's and stepmom's house and,
so
eating
nice.
together.
Yeah.
So I had a second chance of
building a healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's right. But right now, with my mum and my stepdad, my mum has set the boundaries. She's always been forthcoming.
Yeah.
She doesn't like to sugarcoat it. So she's not in a position now where she's comfortable enough to, have my partner over for dinner, as she said. So it's a little difficult because I am closest to my mum and my sister. So I kind of still in some way live a double life where I go between my life and our home together. Well, speaking my partner, our home together, and my mum. So they're like 8 minutes apart, but I leave one world and I enter the next.
Wow, so close together as well.
So close. Yeah, so close.
So close yet so far.
That's right. With my mum's kind of acceptance of my relationship and that life, I think she's going through her own journey.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I think losing my family for a few years means that now whatever they give me, I'll appreciate.
Yeah.
So I've been definitely humbled by not having them in my life. But yeah, we're not at that stage yet.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's lovely to know that your dad and his wife have met Sephora, and it's really nice to know that you guys are building a healthy relationship, and maybe one day with your mum as well, that might come around.
Yeah,
hopefully. So parents usually don't so blatantly accept same-sex relationships, but have your parents ever shown little baby steps towards coming around to it?
So my mum's Lebanese, and food is a big thing in the Lebanese culture. So when we have Ramadan or any kind of gathering at my mum's, she will pack like 8 containers of food. And we live in Strathfield, so I live in Strathfield with my partner, and she's like, she will pack me 8 containers and actually say this is for Strathfield, and that's the code word. That's a generosity.
Yep.
So we don't really name it, but I get double the amount of food.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't name it, but we know it means here's food for you and your partner and the life that you have.
Yes.
Which is a beautiful thing. I think the first time it happened was during our first Ramadan together. And I think Naj was having some internal battles with, I guess, having such separate lives. And I think Mum hosted the breaking of fast that day, and you came back with all the containers, and I was just like, okay, that's actually for me. Well, that is for me. But yeah, it's... yeah, we have hope. I certainly have a lot of hope that maybe one day we can meet. But yeah, I did accidentally meet the nibbling though, so that was a good time.
So Nashwa, you've mentioned that you have a younger sister. So how's your relationship been like with her over the years?
So when I did first come out and I took my mum up on the offer of the ultimatum, I needed to leave the family home. So there was only me and her, and I was the older sister, and I promised that we'll always stick together, because we went through our parents getting divorced. So we had this bond where I said, kind of along the lines of like, we'll never leave each other. Yeah. But unfortunately, I had to come out and move out. She felt very abandoned at the time, and my sister actually tried to move out with me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So she loved me that much, and she even I remember like in the heated discussions with my mum at the time, my mum would say, you're not going to see your family again, and my sister actually said to her, you can't make that decision for them. And so I was 23.
She was supportive.
She was 18. So much, I don't know about supportive with my sexuality, but more so she loved me so much, and she was able to see that you actually can't make that decision on behalf of a whole, you know, community or family. So when she tried to move out with me, I don't know why, and I think it was some kind of survival or guilt kind of instinct. I was hot and cold with her. I wasn't always nice to her because I felt bad that we had both left my mum.
Right.
So in a weird way, I don't know why, but you know, we've spoken through it now. But I mistreated her just so she can go back to my mum.
Yeah.
And then even when I wasn't speaking to my mum and I'd pick my sister up to go out, I'd answer phone calls from my ex at the time.
Yeah.
And I would tell my sister things like, you just have to accept that I'm on the phone with my partner. So I had this weird rage, this, you know, this constant protest of my sexuality.
Yeah.
And she had to bear the brunt of me going through those motions. So she decided to, I think it was better for her mental health to cut me off, because it wasn't nice for her to even, you know, to endure that with me.
Yeah.
We didn't speak for about 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And then, but my talking status with my mum was on and off throughout that time.
Yeah.
But about a few years ago, I can't remember exactly, a few years ago, I was visiting my mum, so I'd make it a weekly visit to see her, to keep that relationship going.
Yeah.
And my tire went flat. And my sister was going to be home from work in half an hour. So I would schedule my visits where I didn't have to make my sister see me.
Right.
So, because I didn't want to put her through anything painful. So I would schedule it around her being home or not being home. My tire was flat. I don't know why, but, you know, I don't think I had a spare, whatever the case is. Like, this is Allah's will. It's just so happened that she came home from work and we hadn't spoken for a few years.
Oh, wow.
I'd sent her birthday messages and things in between, but no response.
Yeah.
So she came home from work and I was freaking out for her. I was like, Mum, you know, she was like, don't, like, just stay here the night. Like, you can't, because at the time I lived in St. Mary's. She was like, you can't get to St. Mary's. You need to go to work tomorrow. You can use one of our cars. And so Allah made us kind of have to be under the same roof again.
Yeah.
She was very guarded, understandably so.
So how did she feel when you did come out to her? What were her feelings towards it?
So we had this conversation the other day, actually. She felt very shocked by it because there was a sense of abandonment, but also she didn't really know. She had hints, and I think she wanted to be the first person that I told, maybe. Yeah. She was very confused, and she still is to this day. She doesn't want to approve it because she's scared of the religious repercussions.
Right.
She kind of, I can see she's going through her own confusion about it all. But there was definitely a lot of hurt that surrounded me leaving the house. So it's hard to kind of distinguish what is related to my sexuality and what is related to me being separated from her.
Right, because she would, like, I guess according to her memories, like, associate both together. Yeah. So how's your relationship with her, like, currently?
We, alhamdulillah, I have a beautiful relationship with her.
Oh, that's so good.
So I always had this fear when we weren't speaking that she would be engaged and get married and have a kid and I wouldn't be around.
Yeah.
And I love kids. Kids, and I was so scared that would happen in my absence. Not in a sense of FOMO, but I was her only sibling. Like, I wanted to be there for her as well. So fast forward, my sister is married and she has a year and a half, a child that's a year and a half. And he is so like me. It is so funny. She calls me, or she'll send me photos and videos of what he's done that reminds her of me. So alhamdulillah, we lived together actually when I first rejoined the family and I bought my apartment. We lived together through the pandemic.
Wow.
And that was, alhamdulillah, that's all I can say. That was an intense year and a half or 2 years of healing together.
Oh, wow.
We had the hard conversations. We cried. Yeah. You know, she was there through my last breakup. And although it was, like a queer relationship, she physically held me off the floor, made sure I ate, like did all the things you do for your, sibling when they go through a breakup.
Yeah.
And then I was there through when she was talking to a few people, and then she was engaged and the engagement broke off, so I was able to be there for her. And so that it was a weird time capsule, the pandemic, but it was also the chance that we got to rebuild our relationship as adults.
Yeah.
So we've hashed out the things that she felt and went through at the time. We've had that chance, which I'm forever grateful for. But yeah, so now I'm blessed with a little nibbling, and yeah, we're on great terms now, and I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, that must be exciting to have both your sister and your mom back in your life, and you having healthy relationships with the both of them.
It means the world to me. When I did come out and lived alone for a while, I doubted my decision, or I doubted, why didn't I just say no, I'm not queer, or I had those feelings because I thought, is it worth this loss? Because it was a massive loss.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I went on the path that I did, and I was authentic. But having them back in my life such a relief, and it's a blessing in the biggest way. Like I love my dad, but I think when I say family, the top two people in my life would easily be my sister and my mum. And living without them was a very massive void that no one could really fill.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, it took, 7 or 8 years, but I'm so grateful that I do have a relationship with them, and we're navigating our boundaries every day, but we're all open and honest, and that's the most that I could ask from them.
Yeah. You get to have them both back, and as your true self.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the best outcome.
It's the best outcome, and I think looking forward, it'd ideally be them meeting my partner, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, hopefully.
So were there things that you wish you did differently that you would implement in the future?
I believe the things, the way it unfolded is the way it was meant to be.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I wish is I was more financially prepared and in touch with the real world and what it meant to be an independent human being, an adult. My mum did everything for us, so when I moved out, I was really shocked with the realities of the world. But for anyone that is thinking of coming out, the only advice I would give is be prepared. Financially. Just know what the cost of living is, how much tomatoes are supposed to cost per kilo. I just wish I had been more prepared. And financially set up. And I don't think anything else could have been different. I can't think of anything that, because I wouldn't be where I am today if one thing had been different.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, the right variables were in place.
Yeah. So would you say that some of the biggest obstacles you faced were kind of just being underprepared since everything came so suddenly?
Definitely. Also feeling torn between, I felt selfish at times. I'm like, is it really that important for me to be authentic? Don't I love my family enough? There was this weird dialogue of maybe I do have to lose something to keep something else. So, I was going to therapy at the time, but I think maybe if I had read up on what it means to be queer and Muslim or queer and of any, denomination, maybe even some psychological preparedness. But, obstacles that I faced and continue to face are just existing with these two, identities. And
sort of juggling it on a day-to-day basis. Wow. So Sephora, as a partner of a queer Muslim, is there any perspective you would offer?
That's an interesting question to answer. I think because of my background, having a pastor as a father, coming from a Seventh-day Adventist church, where it seemed like in our discussions between me and Naj, when we discuss our religions, my house was so much more rigid. Like our rules, like mum and dad barely swore. If you did hear someone swearing, it was like, whoa, this is like, wow, something's going down tonight. We had such different upbringings, even though we both were deep in our religions, but it seems almost like the Adventist faith, it went all the way through, whereas I think Nudge had a bit more freedom at home with their family. But then when it comes to our relationships with them as adults, my family love Naj, and I'm talking about all my family. So my mum and dad, they came around, thank goodness, and they that's a completely different story. But when I introduced Naj to them, my mum, I kid you not, was like, I love her. I love Naj. Like within an hour of meeting Naj, and I was like, yeah, that's the Naj effect. But it was, I don't know. It's been. I think I'm very, very lucky in having that now as an adult, having a family that is so accepting of my queerness and my partners.
Yeah.
But then I think it is really challenging in our situation because, the people that matter the most to Naj, I can't have a relationship with them at this point. I'm not going to push it. It's just, I would advise if this is, if it's something that's really important to you, being in a relationship with someone who, has these restrictions, that you are up for the challenge, I suppose. Because it's challenging, it's eye-opening, and it's a really bittersweet experience. But, we'll have moments in our relationship where I'm like, Naj hasn't been to see their family, and I can see how Naj is kind of getting itchy, or and their peace of mind and their I guess their wellness is very much connected to their relationship with their mum and their sister. So I'm like, babe, I think you need to go see your mum and sister. So it did take me, I think, a few months for me to really get to the point where I felt okay about Naj spending time with their family. I think because I oddly, or maybe not so oddly, felt rejected by them.
Right.
But the thing is, they don't even know me to reject me.
Yeah.
And that's something that I do have to still remind myself. But also that these people are so key in Naj's life that they have to see them to be a whole person, I think. It gives them a lot of, love and spoons. Just when Naj comes back from their family home, they have a lot of energy, and they've, you can see that they're just so much happier and so much more at peace with themselves because they've spent time with them. But yeah, it is... it has been a really eye-opening experience, but yeah, one I'm really grateful for. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for listening to our podcast. I hope it gave you some insight on the journey of navigating through life, love, and family relationships as a queer Muslim. If you need any help, you can call Lifeline or Sydney Queer Muslims. You can reach us on help@sydneyqueermuslims.org.au.